Hey everyone, welcome to This Week in Caribbean Tech. I know you missed us. We missed a week, but we're back. So as you know, This Week in Caribbean Tech is our weekly show where we look about the future of technology in Caribbean business. So we give you some news, we give you our unfiltered insights into the people and businesses that are driving the Caribbean's digital economy, and maybe give you a little bit of heads up as well in terms of some Caribbean tech events that you should add to your calendar. My name is Ingrid Riley, founder and CEO of Silicon Carib. It's been 15 years. I'm entitled to sort of a buck shuffle a little bit. And that person laughing at me is Daniel Smith, my co-host, CEO of Keepingly. Hello, sir.
Hi, ma'am. How are you? How was your week off? How did you enjoy your fireside chat at that event?
Digimark. Oh yeah, Digimark was good. I mean, I listened to some of the stuff before I went and did my fireside chat and then joined the panel afterwards. There was two things that happened just quickly before we go into the show. I was being interviewed by Kyle Maloney, who's one of the co-founders of Tech Beat Retreat. And somehow we ended up in a conversation because I was explaining that Caribbean nations need to think more about integrating and finding what's unique to them and marrying it with technology. And I was saying, hey, look at Trinidad. Trinidad has exported soca, or Jamaica has imported soca from Trinidad. And Kyle was like, yeah, I was there the other day, yes? And I don't like what's going on there because here's the thing, yeah? Y'all look as y'all kind of look like it can get bigger than Trinidad, and because y'all have a better tourism product. So I was like, sir, don't worry about it. That's called Caribbean integration. Don't hate on it. Flow with it, right? and then of course we had to bring it back around to the actual thing, which is to how people can actually use technology to prepare their business for the future. But the thing that came up too is that there was almost like a tone of just like the host and some of the people were talking about a tone. There was like a little tone around being overly cautious and, because limited resources and not wanting to try new things because they don't know if it's going to work out or not. And of course, I blazed with like, hey, now is not the time to play small. Now is not the time to be timid. Now is not the time to be overly cautious. Now is the time to be bold, to look for interesting things to experiment with, to find fresh opportunities. This is the time. So that was really my message because, sometimes we Caribbean people tend to be a little bit too cautious because, whether you're a micro, smaller, or mid-sized companies, which is pretty much the audience of this this two-day conference. I was like, listen, what you gonna know? Being an entrepreneur is about embracing risk. Yes, calculated risk, but you cannot at this time where there's so much going on with digital transformation and disruption and everything, not be excited about opportunities that you see before you. You can't afford to be timid, go tiptoeing to the tulips right now. That don't make no sense. So those are two things that kind of popped from Digimark last week.
But as you were waxing poetic about your experience last week, and our tendency to play timid, I know we don't have it as a news item, but hey, Rihanna was just anointed as youngest billionaire woman,
Absolutely. And Rihanna, just in case you all don't know, is a singer and also entrepreneur and investor. And yeah, she's now a billionaire. Her latest is like 1.4. And she's from BIM. She's from Barbados. Of course, they co-opted her and called her American. Some people was even calling that, Barbados is in Latin. No, is in Central America. I was like, dude, Google doesn't work in your... No? Okay. But yes, you're saying.
No, but I mean, that is one of the perfect examples, because even I posted it on LinkedIn and I'm like, hail up Caribbean massive, because, we have to embrace the wins, but Rihanna didn't become a billionaire by playing small.
Absolutely.
And the people who, You know, there are the apologists for billionaires who say, hey, no one person should ever have so much money. And I'm like, you know what? It's been going on all these years. I'm not playing that game of trying to say, oh, we shouldn't have billionaires, whatever. It is what it is, and the reality is she is one. So accept it, move on, but
Yeah.
understand that. And as a tech community, I hope we can find those unicorns and those billionaires to embrace and bring along with us to be investors in tech. So that's where, you know, that's my mantra. You know, we need the big names like that to come and sit on our companies to, you know, give us the investment and the value and all those things, visibility. So
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue to our very first item, which is Jamaican venture capitalist dude, Marlon Nichols. He heads up the Mac Venture Capital Fund. They just announced that another $203 million fund. This is now their second fund. And Mac Venture Capital is a seed stage venture capital firm based in LA, in Los Angeles and Silicon Valley. So they've raised another fund, 203 million, to build on the 110 million that they had before. And, you know, this is fantastic because Mac Venture Capital, firm is a majority Black owned firm. And so they said they're going to use this capital to double down on their cultural investment framework. But they're basically looking into technology startups who, what they say, are shaping culture and provide, you know, they want to really kind of increase access to resources to underserved communities and to meet some, some fresh and interesting consumer and industry needs. So congratulations to Marlon Nichols. That firm also has people like Adrian Fenty, who was a former Washington, D.C. mayor, and people like, Charles D. King, who, I think he has his own company now. I think it's called Macros, Get Macros.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are fantastic individuals who are very clear about what it is that they want to do with that money. So congrats to them for getting this money. At a time, I don't know if you saw that that report that came out where it says that it seems as if mainstream venture capital firms have pretty much their fetish for Black founders seem to have gone away as a market sort of corrects itself, and people are now being cautious about how they raise and spend money and where they're actually investing. It seems as if Black founders in America, which were on the bottom of the totem pole anyway, seems to have been kicked to the curb somewhat. So it's kind of cool to have a majority Black owned VC firm raise this money and focus on things like, culture, the creative economy, and technology startups that are looking to do certain things. So yeah.
And as you said that you tied in that that last piece nicely, which for me, I was reading up on the state of venture capital. There was a story that came out right after George Floyd died in 2020, and it was talking about the state, and it, as you mentioned that, I felt the chill that you just, because it reminded me of so much of exactly what has been going on and what has been the MO of VCs for so long. And even Black VCs weren't immune to saying that they didn't want to invest in Black founders sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I tip my hat off to a few firms. Mac is one, Harlem Capital is one. Even when you start looking at the numbers, Techstars, is one of the companies, that, invested in a lot of Black founders. And so Harlem Capital has this list of Black VC firms that they put out every year, and you see, who is invested in Black founders and minority founders. And so to me, I don't know how much of this is going to change the landscape. I think that there has been very little in terms of, what that number looks like towards investing into minority founders. And so now this market correction is going to leave a lot of founders blowing in the wind because they're not going to be able to raise a round, they're going to raise down rounds.
Right.
And it's going to be very interesting to see where some of these firms end up. And then they're going to turn it, and the sad part of what that looks like is that they're going to turn it around and like, hey, well, you guys just weren't cut out for business, or you weren't cut out to raise this money. And so it is interesting for us to have, these Mac and, Harlem and the others who are raising actively Brown Ventures. There are a few who are doing some of the work, but it's going to be very interesting, I think, and, where we end up, because again, you have to apply the pressure. I know that there are people who are saying, hey, we are fatigued about hearing about, minority this, minority that. But I'm like, hey, we're fatigued about having to deal with it. So, when you're trying to build a company, when you can't raise money, when there are all these institutionalized systems.
Or people, because you can't go anywhere, people steal your ideas and they have the money, so they run with it and that kind of a thing. So yeah, it's crazy out there.
So I'm happy to see it, and I think that, and also Ingrid, we need to get Marlon on this, on this podcast.
Absolutely.
He is from the region. I think that, Mac and Harlem are two people, and also Chris Brooks from Brown Ventures, which is also raising a $50 million from. He has Jamaican roots in him. So I think that we have to get some of these guys in this conversation because they are from, parts of the region, and we want to ensure that, our founders have this kind of role models, or access to these people who are raising money and who have money to invest.
Absolutely. I mean, Marlon and I sit on the board of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Council of the Development Bank of Jamaica. And so there's that, helping to judge and to bring in entrepreneurs into the loop to access funding. But yeah, so Mac Venture Capital has invested in over 50 companies already. And just collectively, those four main founders, which includes Marlon, prior to forming the Mac Venture Capital, they were invested in over 135 countries, 135 companies. And so we look forward to seeing how this manifests over this year, especially when, as you said, there is this climate of correction and the reassessment by investors as to where they're going to place their money. So congratulations to Marlon, and looking forward to having you. We're going to start doing some interviews, bring some interviewees onto our show over the next couple of weeks. So look out for who we're going to be bringing. So the second item is, if you watched our last show, I was talking about Uber celebrating its first year operating in Jamaica. They had over 200,000 rides, over 14,000 users. This is just in Kingston, the capital, and St. Andrew, and of course, St. Catherine, the neighboring parish. Now, what has happened this week is that the Jamaican Transport Regulation Authority has entered the chat. There's like, oh, so y'all had 200,000 leases. Y'all, people made over $100 million in the first year of Uber. Y'all had 14,500 users right now. And it's still just in Kingston and Jamaica. Well, really, here's what we're going to do. They arrested 4 Jamaicans, prosecuting them for operating Uber services without a public passenger vehicle road license, the PPV, or we call them in Jamaica the red plates, in the last 4 months. They were fined like 20,000 Jamaican dollars each, which is around 170 US dollars. Now, they said that, they're operating illegal. And I was like, sir, what is going on here? Because Uber, the app is available here to Jamaicans through a gray area, a legal gray area, called vehicle with driver lease agreement. Because every time I use Uber, you have to be tapping to agree to ride before it actually goes searching for a rider, a driver to pick you up to go where you're going. And the hypocrisy that comes from the transport authority in Jamaica too is that they know, like pretty much like more than half of the taxis that are on the road across the country are illegal as hell. Half of them do not have these PPV license or these red plates, whatever, yet still they're operating on the roads. So when I was reading the news item, I was like, oh, they think now, with all the numbers out, 200,000 leases and over $100 million made in the first year. They probably believe, or it's coming, or it has happened because they have no data to prove it, that Uber is cutting into their market share. What they're saying is that, we initially had 2,300 licensees applying over the last couple of years. Now that has dropped down to 1,900. So that's like 400 less people applying for road licenses. There's an assumption that they have shifted to Uber. And yes, I've seen some red plates coming as Uber, but this is a small amount. So now we start to see a little bit more friction with the local taxi authority and Uber. But again, they've been operating in Jamaica legally because of a gray area. So they actually, in fact, don't need the say-so of the authorities. But what can possibly be happening is that there's some level of harassment of riders who don't understand how to use the language. Maybe then when they're pulled over and say, hey, are you operating a taxi? And they're saying, no, I'm not. Uber is not a taxi. Uber is I'm going down the road. I decide I'm going to give somebody a ride and they're going to pay me. That's the gray area. So yes, so I figured that when that data came out, I was wondering, why is it so quiet? But now we find out they've arrested 4 of them and said I'm sure it's probably using it as this could happen to you. So watch yourself as you think that you can run Uber in our territory kind of a thing. I mean, come on now.
So it leads me, and I know we had this conversation the last time, what happened to Trinidad Uber, the regulatory framework which Uber operates within. And it reminds me of, just the battles that Uber got into even in the US when they had just started. And it just seems, and Uber is geared up for these fights if they
always.
So,
always.
If you remember Grayscale and how all of that was done, and hiding and operating on certain times when they know certain people would be out, etc. So these guys are geared up for this fight. But my thought process around this really is just about how do other apps, because Uber isn't the only one. So
Uber's InDriver is also here. And QuickPlate, as we had mentioned earlier in the previous show, they're about to enter the fray as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what's the response then.
So is Uber being made the fall guy?
The beating stick, yes, as we would say in Jamaica. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to, I don't know Uber would publicly come and have a conversation with us. But again, these are interesting conversations because they blur the line between, hey, this is what is happening in people's everyday lives, but this is how technology integrates to make people's life easier. And so again, governments and authorities who are closed-minded to some of these things are going to try to, put barriers in the way. And even in Uber's case, remember in New York when the medallions and all these, what a medallion costs and how much it costs to Uber and all these, it's $1 million for a NYC medallion. So who could afford those? Only the rich, the companies who could afford those things. And so the common man wasn't getting involved.
Exactly.
So the question really is who benefited the most out of these things. And so as you're saying, it may be a case of, the taxi associations who starting to kick some fuss about it, because in the beginning it will never impact us until they see it's cutting into their.
And then until they saw the numbers. I'm pretty sure if no numbers were reported, it probably would have just been gone on and continue to grow and also. And I know my experience is somewhat anecdotal. I mean, I've been taking Uber, on and off for the past year, and I would say 9 out of 10 of the Uber drivers have never done it before. They're doing it part-time to supplement their income. They're working other jobs. 1 or 2 of them have gone into it seriously because they've either been in the transport industry before, and now they're seeing this as another pool of business, another market that they can tap into when other things are maybe not flowing as quickly. So I just think it's going to be interesting to see how this further manifests. If this is going to deter new Uber drivers, if this is going to deter in-driver, quick cart, as they are in the manifest in the market as well, or maybe the transport authority would just simply, maybe could they just simply understand that there was an untapped market that did not want to participate in the regular taxes because they did not like that experience, and so they're used to the Uber experience, or chose to experience something different and liked it. And so, if you think from a position of abundance, maybe all can exist, and the customer definitely is the winner here, because they now have even more choice as to how they want to roll around the city. So I'm just going to be watching this and see what happens. But it's, always, they didn't mention in-driver, they didn't mention anything else. It's all about Uber because the data came out, and therefore they're swirling around that. But that's the beautiful thing about technology. It brings competition, it brings efficiency to markets.
Yep.
And may the most efficient business win, and may the business that understands the consumer and deliver what the consumer wants consistently win. It's that serious. It's really that simple. Anyway, on to your people. I'm just kidding. This is from what, Bahamas? Okay. Yeah, this next item. This carbon technology company, Cloud Carib, seems to be breaking some records. This Bahamian-based technology company was placed, I think, 12th in the world and number 1 in Caribbean, Latin America, for their what they call now IT management services. So they've been around for around a decade now, and they're in what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, call it 7 countries. And so it seems as if the cloud business has always been a very viable business, because that has been a digital trend for a while, that companies are using these geographically independent IT managed services, cloud, because they're cheaper, because they're scalable. And so Cloud Carib seems to have carved a niche in the Caribbean for that, for sure. So they're out of Bahamas. So congratulations to them, for sure.
That's some big stuff. When I stumbled upon that one, I was just like, interesting. I've never heard of them. So
no, I've heard of them. They send me a couple of press releases regularly, and so I see, I was like, that's interesting. Okay, cool. So kudos to them.
More for the business side, because they don't necessarily deal with the end consumer. So
exactly, it's more of a business to business kind of a operation. Yeah. Anyway, the last 2 items are about the first one is about Trinidad. Trinidad government seems to be like, you know what? We know we're supposed to be all about this digital transformation and digitization and all that. But these past 2 years kind of was like, really kind of put us under pressure. And so we're having some challenge. What are your thoughts around your people there in Trinidad? Daniel, what's going on with them?
Why do you try to put me in these positions, man? Jeez.
It's your people in Trinidad. I know you live in Miami, no, but it's your people in Trinidad. So explain.
You're the one who got invited to Digimark, not me. So you have.
Them know you, man. I'm just a visitor. I'm a tourist.
You may be closer to this story than me at this stage. But the government saying that digital transformation is still possible despite some of the challenges, and that the ministry, is spearheading the work to prepare and equip the public service with the right tools, skills, and competencies to provide improved service delivery to citizens through digital transformation.
Take out my violin there.
So for me, I'm reading these things and I'm like, okay, yeah. But how is that? Because, when you talk to the average person, they still tell you about lining up, have conversation. And for me, I'm kind of, I would say I was closer to some of these things because of, relationships or work that I would have done. So I kind of would have seen some of these things kind of up close. But, it's for those who have been in the sector for more than 5-10 years, these are things that you've been saying. And getting your citizens, I think that what I've realized about our populace as a region is that we love to be consumers of technology and not producers of technology. And sometimes we aren't asking the right question. So everybody loves to be on Facebook and pontificate about, life and XYZ and sharing 100 memes. But, how much of us are really building? How many of us are building in the processes? And process building is really hard, even from the customer experience side. I remember a personalized experience where you're telling them, I think I was telling you when I was going to Trinidad sometime last year about, not being able to use my computer to upload the form. And I actually had to use my mobile phone. And I was just like, hey, who built this form? Why isn't it compatible for mobile and for
Absolutely.
Right? And so these are the little things that you see that is like, okay, who designed this? This wasn't really built for everybody or every type of consumer. And so I think that, it's about who is it. A lot of what happens in Trinidad is sometimes about maintaining the status quo, sadly. People like to have things the way that they have because they're comfortable. And, we were just talking about it at the top. Again, our people don't like to normally sometimes step out of our comfort zone. And so this is what you see. So people are like, hey, I custom using my paper and therefore I cool with my paper. And so, that's what you have. And then even in the case of the public sector and some of these government employees, they're like, I'm too old for that. I don't want to learn any new system.
Yeah, resistance to change.
Right?
Yeah,
that would be Daniel, right? That would be Daniel. Okay, bye. It's been real, but when you do that, people get all in their feelings about, but hey, you need to be retrained, reskilled, something to be able to.
That's what they said here. The news came out that from the ministry that they are now working to gather the usual thing, gather the necessary data to determine the needs that need to be worked on in order to create training programs and improvement in learning so that their 22,000 public sector employees can be digitally enabled and be trained where this is concerned. So pretty much what it sounds like to me is that, hey, without question, the pandemic pushed and forced and disrupted a whole bunch of different things. So what it did, it basically exposed even more flaws in the system. Now, there's a demand from the people and the businesses that do business with the government, that things have to change. And they're now caught sort of off kilter, saying, oh my God, we're not prepared for this. This came on us unexpectedly. A lot of things are happening fast. Now, how do we, as we say in Jamaica, catch up yourself and actually meet the moment of getting our people trained? Because for me, it's not a matter of if, it simply must happen. There's no snapping back to 2019. There's no snapping back to February 2020 when COVID was not there. There's not all this disruption in how we use technology in our economy as a whole 9 years. We have no choice. In fact, the minister says COVID was definitely a live case study of change in action, and we should not let these lessons go to waste. We must build on them. They have no choice. They really have no choice. Do they want to be a successful and service, service, world-class service kind of a government, or they're going to try and maintain the status quo. But they're doing themselves as a government this service, they're doing their public sector employees a this service, and they're doing the people of Trinidad as a service. And of course, this is not just only about Trinidad, this is blanket, of course, across the region. And of course, this is happening across the world. So yeah, so digitization or digital transformation may have been buzzwords that we got tired of hearing during the pandemic, but it's now manifesting without question. And so that's
the last story, right?
That leads to the last story, right? Where it says, where is Caribbean region? Where's the Caribbean region in its digital transformation efforts? What did this one say here?
They were just talking about, so this is from Michelle Marius, and she
yes. Michelle Marius is from ICT Pulse, or sister blog, yes.
And so she was just talking about, how policymakers and industry leaders between 2020 and now, she said, that they're not hearing the term digital transformation as much. In 2020, digital transformation was a popular buzz phrase.
Yes.
Although trendy also signified an urgent change that both individuals and organizations needed to adopt. 2 years later, although the pandemic still lingers, the Caribbean businesses, there is still an absence of long-term and time-bound commitment to digital transformation. Further digital transformation can be costly, not just in money, but also in commitment, time and effort needed to execute well. So the question really was, the bottom line is that we didn't really go too far from 2020 to now. Yeah. Some of it is just cosmetic, and some of the changes really, we're still trying to figure out where they landed.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, I think that's fair, that there's, without question, nobody's expected to have all the answers now. Nobody does. Nobody across the world does. Everybody was caught by surprise, and some countries were better, more responsive and were better able to do certain things. But this was just simply, as we keep saying, an unprecedented event. And so without question, there were, there's some things that need to be figured out. But I worry, while my default is always optimism, I worry that the people who lead our governments in the Caribbean, some of them are just simply waiting for things to snap back to what it was before, and will try and slow down the pace of digital culture, which has been sped up over the past 2 days. We'll try and slow down the demands of digitization and digital transformation for whatever reason. And that is never a good thing to do. Yes, sort of a step back and try and steal the wood for the trees from the woods, and then, make some sort of a strategy around getting certain things done. But we can't ignore this. It can't just be, okay, well, it's a buzzword and everybody's hot on it, and then it just wanes because we're now out because it's summer.
Right.
So, I mean, I get that, and I get it. Everybody wants to be out and having fun. It's our first real summer, but we're talking about setting up your country for the future. Pardon me. We're talking about setting up our country for the future. So it's not something that we can deny.
And when you look at it from me, just kind of being outside and looking in, you say to yourself, and so, I mean, even in the conversations around crypto, financial, inclusion, how these things have basically raced ahead in some, so some aspects of it, we have raced ahead.
Absolutely.
So, it's not like, hey, it's been a zero-sum game and there was nothing accomplished. Right. But to me, there was some of the low-hanging fruit of things that could have been done that were not done. Yeah. So, things like digital identity, just how, processes were done. And I, if I take it back to the minister just talking about, if a lot of things were, up to speed in terms of understanding where people are in terms of just their literacy, then implementation would be so much easier. because you're not trying to retool a
Yes,
whole
that part.
society. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
you have to, but you also, I think that even from the whole digital transformation, sometimes digital transformation to me, and so where I was in telecom, we were talking about digital transformation starts with people. It starts with a mindset. It doesn't start with the technology. The technology is like the last thing.
Exactly.
But if you start building these conversations around, hey, here's what, this is your mindset, because you know, it was just about bill payment. How do you pay your bills? Do you go into a store? Everybody, the last 2 years, everybody have been paying all their bills online. And so who is going back into a store? I remember reading even in that previous story, Republic Bank were talking about 40% of the customers coming for this transaction, XYZ. And I'm like, hey, but most people doing online banking in the last 2 years. Are we going to go back to people wanting to come into store to really execute a transaction? So it pushes us. And sometimes, you know, Steve Jobs was one of those persons who said, you know, the consumer don't really know what they want. Sometimes you
Actually show it to them.
Yeah, sometimes you have to, you know, create it and say, okay, this is what we're moving to. And then everybody has to be, you know, forced to change their lifestyle or the way they were doing things. But the way they were doing things, while they may like it, it was inefficient.
Yeah.
And so we were using these big Blackberries and these big smart flip phones. Now everybody is on either Android or Apple. And so it has changed the landscape. Nokia is no more. Who would have thought 10 years ago?
Blackberry is no more.
Blackberry would be no more. But that's a change that technology brings.
Evolution.
So the younger ones, and you know, you talking about what you're afraid of. What I'm afraid of is the younger persons who have been born into a culture of everything is digitized, everything is very fast paced, and now you're living in a society where everybody's trying to hold you back, or the systems and the processes are archaic. What happens to them, and how do they feel in such a society? I think it causes them that kind of frustration whereby, you know, here's what, I'm fed up of doing this, or I see better options to me. I'm bright enough, I'll leave. And that's how brain drain occurs in our society.
Absolutely. And we all know that across the majority of Caribbean countries, it is pretty much a millennial world, you know, a millennial and Jay-Z world. We have a little bit over or 50% of populations are under 35. So we have got to be mindful of that. And that's why I said it's going to be, I think over the next 18 months is going to be very telling as to what Caribbean, you know, governments do, Caribbean businesses do, Caribbean people do. And we'll see even more so how much the pandemic, which caused disruption, which caused acceleration in you know, digital culture, how that truly manifests in different sectors. It's going to be super, super interesting to see what demands snap back near to near pre-COVID or remain because habits have now become entrenched, trends have now become entrenched, and it's now up to the businesses and other sectors to match the fresh demands of a more digital Caribbean individual. So we will see what happens.
I have a question for you, Ingrid.
What that?
How does the normal man on the street, the consumer, push against the system to make sure that these changes that we've experienced in the last 2 years can be cemented to become the way of life versus having us snap back to the old way?
You know, I don't know. I think it's a matter of exposure. I mean, the majority of us, all of us, were forced into doing a lot of things differently over the last 2 years. That we never thought we do. You know, what's that? Wearing a mask. You know, whether it is, you know, taking your street side business to WhatsApp and taking orders then and then delivering them. You know, whether it's you know, all of a sudden we could, you know, get your groceries delivered. You know, have some, you know, order a bearer to go pick up your things in pharmacy. So when those things, I think, are personalized, those benefits, those day-to-day benefits are, and we've had a taste of that. Do we want to go back to spend 2 hours in a bank? Maybe not. Do we want to go back to the supermarket? Maybe sometimes. Or maybe we can do some, maybe we're half and half. That's why I said that it's going to be interesting to see what data manifests. And I pray to God at least somebody somewhere is actually collecting some data that they're or allergy to collecting and being data informed. Goes away, and that we actually embrace this data-driven world. It's going to be interesting to see what the culture from the point of view of the consumer, how they drive change or how they demand certain things remain in place as well. And I think too, just outside pressure from the global digital economy will come to bear on also some of what Caribbean countries do and Caribbean consumers do, Caribbean businesses and governments do. So the next 18 months, inflation high or low, recession here or not, it's going to be a very interesting time. So yeah, so we're going to wrap up now with one last item. We're at Silicon Carib. Hey, we're a content production and events company. So we're out doing some more things. Just launched a new audio only podcast series called This Week in Caribbean Startups. It's a short weekly narrative show that I do about Caribbean digital rock stars and what I call their sun-kissed innovations. It's typically under 10 minutes and it's divided into 3 segments. The opening segment is typically one startup that's like an OG, a tech pioneer in the industry. In other words, they've been around for over 10 years. When we talk about, what trends they're riding, what problems they're solving, and how they're making money doing that. The other segment is about pretty much like, a startup that I really am excited about, and I believe that you really must know more about. And the closing segment is usually a wildcard startup that we believe will probably leave you thinking, they're making money doing what? So it's out now, just dropped it yesterday. You can check it out on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, iTunes. I put up 2 episodes just to give you a taste of what it's going to feel like every Thursday.
Okay, we have a sneak peek now. Who is the OG in episode 1? Since you put out 2 episodes.
Who is the OG in episode 1?
Yeah.
Trini Tuna.
Okay. Damn. That one bring back memories. Wow.
Yeah, Trini Tuna has been around for 22 years.
Wow.
And these guys started out as developers, and they were also into cars and car culture, so they merged the two and created this website called trinituna.com, which is like a car classifiers and community. They have a ads business going, they have a media business going, they have a live events business going, and they've kept that going for 22 years. Now that's what they call a true OG. So yeah, if you want to know who is in the rest, go listen to it. You can go to siliconcarib.com. You can listen to it from there, or go to wherever you listen to podcasts. It's audio only. So yeah, that is Friday, July 8th.
Right.
I know where I'm going right now. I'm about to put on my my going out in clothes, as they would say, and go meet my friends at a wine bar. And it is, as we're talking about Kyle, that Jamaica has co-opted Trinidad. It's Carnival weekend in Jamaica. So there are a lot of fetes, a lot of juves, a lot of road marches going on. Kingston is very busy this weekend with Carnival.
Kingston is lit, right?
Is lit this weekend.
Kingston is lit. So you might bounce up Kyle when you ride down the road.
I don't think he's here.
I'd have to message him and say, Kyle, you need to go to Jamaica and hang out to Ingrid for the weekend, dude.
I don't think he's here. But yes, but that's it, guys. Thank you for this, staying with us. We skipped a week, we're back, and we're back weekly.
And we skipped a week because Ingrid was the featured fireside chat person last week. So it's,
it clashed with our recording times, but we'll keep going. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some illustrious guests join us here on This Week in Caribbean Tech. So if you like what you heard, what you saw, because of course you can watch us on Silicon Carib TV on YouTube channel. You can listen to us again, Spotify and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard, if you found something of value, please comment somewhere, click a like button, subscribe, be generous and share it with your friends. Help us to grow our audience, which is growing very nicely. And so with that, see you back here next week, Friday, for another episode. I'm Ingrid Riley.
And I'm Daniel Smith.
He always does that podcast thing, and I'm Daniel Smith. Dude! Anyway, next week, y'all, take it easy.